Hey guys, this is Sadaf from Being Sadaf. Joining me today is Jacquelyn Aluotto. Today's topic is human sex trafficking, and Jacquelyn is a human sex trafficking advocate, and she has been combating human sex trafficking for years now and is a leader for our Houston community. I think this is a great time during COVID to bring out other issues that aren't being addressed. So I'm going to pass it on to Jacquelyn, and she's going to tell us about her journey and how she came here.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It is very important to talk about other issues besides COVID, because as COVID has happened, child sexual exploitation and human trafficking is on the rise. So these are things that we really want to remind our communities and our parents of, is to really look out and be aware for what's happening with your children. Right now, our law enforcement is scattered and people are afraid to go out, and so we're not really focusing on our children as much as we should.
So when you said the law enforcement, they're afraid to go out, is it because of COVID or?
I'm sorry, they're not afraid to go out. They're spread so thin right now.
Of course.
So with being spread so thin and doing different stings and extractions when we're covering children, we've had to change up our protocols with doing that. So it just looks a little different. I think that coronavirus just kind of took the world by storm. And we're just trying to really balance out how we're going to help keep our community safe.
So I wanted to ask you, how did you get so involved, and what are the steps that are taken? Like how do you hear about the children?
Okay. So I got involved 20 years ago. I had decided to make a film called Not in My Backyard. I wanted to really focus on how battered women and their children were fleeing abuse in the United States. I had heard that every 3 minutes a child went homeless, and it was something that really
That's so sad.
bothered me. Yeah. And I wanted just to go out and see for myself. And so I started going to shelters across America, and then it ended up being 7 years.
Wow.
And what I found was, in all of these different states and cities, there was these homeless teenagers. And at the time, they were labeling them child prostitutes. And that was so disturbing to me, because children cannot be prostitutes. But now the term is trafficking victims. And when I started digging more, a lot of them were in foster care, a lot of them were runaways, and they just didn't have people to advocate for them. And so the journey of like combating human trafficking and what it looked like and how it was happening really started for me.
So what state were you living in back then?
I was living in New Jersey, and I was
Okay.
doing a lot of my work in New York and New Jersey.
Oh wow.
Yeah, my nonprofit's headquarters is in New York and New Jersey. So we started there.
Oh yes, I forgot to mention, Jacquelyn is also, are you the president for Real Beauty, Real Women? And that is her organization.
Real
correct?
Beauty Women Foundation. Yes.
Okay, sorry, Real Beauty, Real Women Foundation organization. So along this journey, I think that is something very difficult. As I know you're a mother, I'm a mother. So when I was at that gala from ESSI and Real Beauty, Real Women, that was the first time I believe I cried like openly when I heard Alicia Kozak's story, and when I heard you speak and how passionate you guys were. And I felt like we live in this little bubble and we have no idea. And I myself had no idea that this existed. And I had been, ever since that day, I was like, my mission, I need to talk to Jacquelyn. I want to know, how can I get involved? How can I get other people involved? And how do you deal with it, like emotionally?
So I would say, emotionally is interesting. I really do think that advocates need to go see therapists, just because every day you're seeing children suffering.
Yes.
And there's so much trauma. But for me, there's such a reward when the kids are not only just recovered, but when they're doing just so well. And I say that because people have this idea about human trafficking. They think when you recover a child, a lot of times they're going to say thank you so much. But a lot of times children don't even self-identify as being victims. And I say that because they've been groomed in schools. a friend has groomed them, a boyfriend has groomed them. And when I say groomed, I'll say it like this. Have you ever been manipulated before?
Absolutely.
Yes. So imagine being a child and being manipulated by someone who knew exactly what they were doing and knew why they were going to do it. And what they do is they turn these children inside out. And by the time they're done with these children, they are so broken and they can't even remember who they are, that the only people that they're identifying with is their predators. And they actually form a bond, a trauma bond with their predator. And so when you recover children, it's so hard to break that bond a lot of times, not all of the times. And so human trafficking just looks a lot different than what it really is. It really is in plain sight. Children are being trafficked out of schools, they're being trafficked out of churches. But it's just, what does that look like?
I mean, I guess my biggest question is, what are some signs as a parent that we should look for? Ever since that gala, I came home, I looked through my son's YouTube channels, everything, what is he up to? And I sneak up on him. I want to know what he's up to because, people play Call of Duty, whatnot. And I know that was brought to our attention that through the internet, they can prey on your children.
The games. So I would say the internet is one of the easiest and biggest ways for predators to access your children. There's about 7 billion people in the world. And imagine if 5 to 10% of them are predators. When you're on the internet, they have access to your children. So gaming, Fortnite, all these games.
Yes.
It's easy. You make up a profile. You pretend to be another child. As kids are playing these games, they're very open. And again, these are predators. They're manipulators. Oh, do you live at home with your mom and dad? Oh, I'm getting bad grades. And they're pulling all this information out about your children, how they feel, what they think. And then it becomes also where they can manipulate and follow them on Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook for the older kids, because a lot of the younger kids don't really have it. TikTok now is really huge.
Really?
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and a lot of the videos being made with TikTok. And so the real thing is, what I tell parents the most is, when you notice a difference in your children, there is something wrong. Even if it's not human trafficking, there is a reason why your child is acting different. When you see them on their phones, and it's normal, we all are busy, and with coronavirus, your child grabs the iPad or they play a game, and you're not thinking, because you're doing all your stuff that you're supposed to be doing.
Of course.
But I tell parents, go right over there and find out, like, hey, who's this person talking to? And then ask your child, oh, who's so-and-so? Is that a new friend? Do they go to school with you? Just specific things like that. Go over with your children. Never give out your address, where you're from, your school, the state that you live in. If people are asking you those questions, to tell your mom and dad right away.
Okay. So we need to educate our children.
Yes, social media is a huge way to exploit. Another thing is pornography with kids is a big deal. And with these games, a lot of times they'll tell boys and girls, well, just lift up your top and we'll put money on your games to give you things that kids don't think about, or they don't think it's a big deal.
And they're like, all right, yeah, okay. And no one else is going to know about it.
Right.
And they're exploiting them.
Yeah. And another thing is, if they think it's a girlfriend that they've made friends with, or a boyfriend, and then it's a slow, hey, don't tell your parents this, and you guys start exchanging these pictures. That's another way for exploitation to happen. And a lot of times there are like child predators or child pornography rings on the other end of that computer. The other thing for me, which I find to be disturbing, is when my child is playing games on my phone, these commercials that come up.
Yes.
These violent, horrible commercials and different things, those will lead to other things too.
So how do we help you? Is there any way we can help, or just as a society as a whole? Because I know my son's YouTube is kid friendly, but somebody told me that even in there they have the videos and
Yes.
they can see everything.
Yeah, so YouTube, any kind of social media, predators and criminals are always way ahead of us because we don't think like them. There's apps to find kids and their ages and their states and cities where they are. Nothing is really safe on the internet. If it's out there, it's out there, and a lot of times predators are going to be able to get to it. So you just need to explain to your children. Anything you put on there, realize it can go everywhere.
Everywhere, yes.
And the hard thing is I didn't have Facebook growing up. I'm older than I think a lot of people.
No, I didn't have Facebook either growing up. Thank God.
Yes.
For that, okay.
But imagine if you did.
Yeah.
You know, you would just be posting stuff and you're not realizing that this is forever. People are watching it. Parents, your teachers, predators.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's just really kind of explaining it to them, and then really monitoring. And I know this is hard. Like everyone that's commenting on your kids' videos, liking them. Who are these people? Like, how do you know them?
Yeah. And
then I always would click on who the likes and comments come from, and then to see that profile.
so what age range are you seeing these days? Majority of the human trafficking being done?
So I work on Precinct 1's human trafficking liaison and advocate. And then I'm also HETRA, which is HPD's task force, community outreach for human trafficking.
Okay.
And so I deal a lot with children. The majority of the children that I deal with law enforcement and Real Beauty, Real Women is from 13 to 18 years old.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
So it's very impressionable ages. Yeah.
Yeah, the most impressionable ages to be lured is 11 and 12.
Oh wow, okay.
Those are the most impressionable.
And I think that's when you're most insecure growing up.
Yeah, and you're transitioning from school grades. So about 12 years old.
Yeah.
11 and 12.
So how do you guys find the children? I'm just gonna act, I'm not trying to act naive, but I am.
Sure.
I have no idea. I have no idea how you guys find the children. What is the protocol? What do you guys do next? I think our viewers would really like to know, like, how does the system work?
So with Real Beauty, Real Women, we get community calls all the time because we're in the community.
Okay.
So it'll be parents, a neighbor, a friend, a cousin, a mom, an aunt. This happened to my friend's child. This happened to my child. We're always contacted by the community.
Okay.
With law enforcement, same thing. We have a human trafficking hotline, and people will call that, or when there's outcries at the detention centers of trafficking, which happens a lot, and people don't realize a lot of these kids in these juvenile detention centers, they did their crimes under their traffickers, and because law enforcement is just catching up in the court system, they didn't understand that. And so when these children are in the detention centers, they outcry and you find out. And as an advocate, I spend a lot of my time in the detention centers, and those kids, it's amazing what has happened to them, and what little resources they have had and how exploited they have been. So the outcries from there, then undercover stings, when we have recoveries, those, there's just a bunch of different ways. And then from there, so Texas has, the governor's office has a continuum care. So I really like this because this is really important. So when a child is being trafficked or exploited, you obviously want your law enforcement to arrest the predators and work on cases. That's 100%. But then the other part that's equally as important is advocacy and trauma-informed care for these victims. And so when you recover a child, you would call in Harris County a place called Triad. And then Triad links up advocates to that child.
All right.
And then the advocates like YMCA, PCFS, the Landing, I'll work with them, and we'll make sure that the children get therapy that they need. If they're behind in school because they've been so traumatized and victimized, how do we get them back up to speed? if they don't have parents who are their caseworkers in foster care or their guardians, are they okay? Do they need therapy? A lot of times parents will probably, every time, if you're a parent and your child's been exploited, you should go to therapy.
Of course.
And
It's
so,
huge trauma.
yeah, so making sure that the parents are okay. For the kids that are in the detention centers, accompanying them to court, working with a lot of times their court-appointed attorneys are very busy, so they're not really putting in the care for the kids like they should, not all of them. So I'll work with them. I'll suggest to judges supervision plans and what I think should feel. So it's very...
So what communities do you think lack in helping one another out? Because I know this is a very hush-hush topic. People,
Sure.
like, I don't know how a mother would deal with something like this. You know, sometimes I feel like I'm different. I'm the type, like, you need to bring issues, you know, to attention, bring it out, tell your friends, you know, spread the word.
Right.
But there's a lot of people that are like, I don't want my
Yeah.
life to be told, or my child is only 13 or 14 and he or she went through this. So
I think the biggest problem with communities and families is there's such a shame
yeah.
behind trafficking and exploitation, and the parents feel like it's their fault. And so they don't want to talk about it because they blame themselves.
Okay.
And that's actually a normal reaction, which is why therapy and getting them help in a support group is so important. Because once they get that, they see that this has really happened to a lot of children and parents, sadly. And you can't be with your kids 24/7. They're in school, they're at the mall. There's just so many different ways that predators can get to your children. So I think it's really hard for all communities to talk about being trafficked. I think the community that are least hurt with trafficking is communities of color, and it's really because for the indigenous communities with the reservations, the laws are different. You know, you have your tribal police and you have your regular police. So when,
Oh wow. That's
Yeah.
so interesting. Okay.
yeah, so when women and children go missing, once a predator leaves that reservation, a lot of times they can't be held accountable
Oh.
because they're off the reservation and the laws are different. And there's just such a gap in those communities, and there's just different laws. So really trying to help bridge those gaps with those communities and provide them with things that they need. And then in communities of color, what's been really hard with Hispanic and African American has really been that in the areas that are underserved, it's just kind of more as an acceptance, which shouldn't be. And I say that because if you look at what happens on Bissonnette, if you go there at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, you know, during the COVID crisis, you do have young girls that are walking around, getting into cars, being bought and
Sitting
sold.
themselves.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
but you wouldn't ever see that in Cinco Ranch, Katy, even though human trafficking is huge in Katy.
Really?
Yes, but it's hush hush. It's not out in the open.
It's like the families that just don't want anyone to know. Like,
Yes, and the traffickers and the predators, they know that if what happened, you know, in other areas, young girls walking up and down a street, that would not work. So each community has their own issues that they're in crisis with, and it's really addressing how each community is being exploited, and then how do we find those solutions.
so right now, what are you seeing during COVID? Because we're not talking about anything but COVID.
Right. So for me, COVID is so frustrating, obviously, because innocent people are dying and people are sick, and you never want to see that. That's horrible. But child sexual exploitation is going through the roof because children are really being unmonitored and they're constantly on their devices. A lot of times children would be out, they'd be playing on their bikes, they're in school.
You're right.
And so they are just constantly on their phones, and they're being enticed by predators and not realizing what's happening. And you never see about that right now on the news because we're not talking about that. Human sex trafficking is on the rise too, because you know that that's not something that is where people's focus is right now.
So they're taking advantage of it.
Mhm.
And you see a rise in numbers.
Yes, yeah. There's a rise in those numbers, and there's a rise in domestic violence.
Oh, yes.
And so it's like, while we can, make sure everyone's safe with COVID, how can we make sure that we are still focusing on the crimes that are happening every day before coronavirus and are going to continue to happen after coronavirus?
I know, I think that's like the hardest because we can't reach out to, like, we're not at that place anymore where we could just walk into our friends' houses and
Right.
see what's going on, or see them weekly or even monthly or
Right.
whatever. So we really don't know what's going on in someone's life.
Mhm.
How would somebody like you said, signs, what are some like good signs to look out for your children? Like, okay.
And for me, a big part of signs is there is behavior changes with your children. They become very isolated from you. They become very isolated and alienated from all of the original friends that they used to have. They start hanging out with different people, or they start only having interest in a certain few people. They start lying to you. A lot of times they start using substances, whether it's drinking or drugs. And the crazy thing about human trafficking is a lot of the signs of human trafficking also mimic being a teenager. So that's
very true because they're hormonal, they're angry
Yes.
or sad or upset. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But for me, like I always say to parents, like if you see a difference in your child, you need to find out what it is. Now, your child, a lot of them are going to say, I don't want to talk about this, nothing's wrong, don't bother me.
Of course.
But you do have to be really persistent, because if there's a changed behavior in anybody, something is wrong. And so I would say really look out for changing of friends, alienating, isolating. Do they have a different cell phone all of a sudden? Where did they get their cell phone? Do they have different products? If they have different products, where did they get that stuff from? So these are just like simple signs, and I can also send you a list too.
Yes, I would love that.
And then you could put it on, your site.
Yes, I would.
And all of these things are really important because when someone's being groomed and they start completely changing, they start changing the way they think, and so they're acting very differently. And isolating from all the people who have been their loved ones and their support system is very important. Changing who their friends are. Just those things alone should make you really think like something's going on. And if your child's not being human trafficked, then are they being bullied at school? Something is really happening, and how do you get to it? And I tell parents, you will pay for your children's devices. You have to go through them. And I know that
Very
that
true.
sounds, crazy, because when you were growing up, if you had a diary, you wouldn't want your mom to read it, but...
Oh no, my mom did.
Okay.
I would come home to like a broken diary every day. But like I had a lock and my mom would break the lock.
Oh my God.
So my mom was very hands-on.
So imagine if 5 billion people could get access to your diary.
Oh God.
And then imagine if a small percentage were predators and traffickers.
Oh my God, that would be really
And they have access to you
Yeah.
in your home, your other children and your family.
Oh,
So I always will monitor any devices, and you have to monitor those devices too, and check on their social media. What are people saying? What are people doing? I'm a huge fan of all the people that are liking your kids' pages. Follow where those likes are going. And if it's a guy with a bunch of cash and he's trying to exploit young girls, or these are signs of these are the people that are now interacting and have access to your kids.
Okay. I mean, I just feel like, I'm not gonna lie, I've encouraged my son to have a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And I know like a lot of my friends right now, they're sitting there like, oh, my kid has this talent or that talent, and I'm holding my child back. I'm like, oh no, get a YouTube channel for them, but
Yes.
monitor it. And my son has one. It's under my email address. So
That's great.
I monitor. He
Yes.
has like 5 followers. I'm not gonna lie, please do subscribe to Ralph's
Yeah.
Fun channel. But he literally has 5 like followers. But I'm sitting here giving advice to my friends, and I haven't even thought this through, like what you're telling me. Like, this is something you guys out there,
Well,
pay attention to who is subscribing to your
Yes.
child's channel.
but here's the thing, like kids are gonna be kids.
Absolutely.
So like YouTube, social media, it's not going away. And so one of the big things that I realized with COVID-19 is that our country and largely a part of the world,
Yeah.
we're not really prepared for crises because we don't put solutions in place. And so we know that social media is going to be here, and forget about what's going to be created 10 years from now. We'll probably will walk through a television or something like super scary. But,
Yeah.
we know that it's here to stay. So how do we prevent predators from reaching our kids? And so like you did a great thing. It's under your website. So anyone that tries to contact him
gonna
or
be my
email
email
him,
address.
yes. That's actually very good. All parents should do that because then you know exactly who's communicating with your child.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's the same with knowing the password on their phone. They have that app, the 360 Live app.
My sister has it on every single person in her family. They
Yes.
all know where they are at all times.
Yeah, so whenever your child goes somewhere, you know. And I just think when you do all of these things, you're taking as many measures as you possibly can, but your children still have to live their life.
Of course.
But as long as you're educated and then you see that, then you'll be able to say, this email from this person is very strange. Let me do my own investigating and find out, who is this person?
Yeah.
And there's so many parents that have called Real Beauty Real Woman or the hotlines, and they'll say, hey, we think.
And what is the hotline number, if you don't mind me asking?
I have to look on my phone.
Okay.
I know that's so hard.
I will get you guys a
Yes.
hotline number because we all need to be educated and be prepared.
Yes, if you go on Precinct 1, Constable Alan Rosen Precinct 1 Human Trafficking Hotline, it'll be on there.
Okay.
And then if you go on HPD and HATRA,
Okay.
it'll be on there too. Or if you go on the Sheriff's Office, they all have hotlines. But we get questions from parents all the time like, hey, so my son met a girl and she's from England, but she's asking these, strange questions, and there's been a change in his behavior and he's been secretive. What do you think? And then just sitting down with parents. I actually think, you just made me think of a great idea. I feel like each community should have like groups with parents where advocates come and can show them tools and steps with the social media and things that they can do to prevent it. And if they have any questions, they can ask us right then and there.
That's a really good idea. I think we definitely need to start doing that.
Yeah, me too. I think that would be great, just getting all the parents together. And then you'd be surprised when people start talking, because the shame or the...
Yeah, once they know like someone else's kid is going through the same process or attitude change or personality change, they're more likely to admit that they've seen different patterns as well.
Absolutely. We even just had a meeting with churches, and a big thing was churches get new family members. And you feel safe in church. But you want to make sure that while you're feeling safe in church, you are safe in church. So what are different signs of predators or traffickers? And same with schools, like what would grooming look like with a child? So we definitely should do the community.
It's like a community outreach program, basically. Just come out, teach each community what to look out for. Educate them. Parents need to be educated, because I think we are so self-involved, even with social media. As me, as like a blogger, and I work, etc. Like I just don't have that kind of time to like keep paying attention to my child. But I think these little things, we can always keep in the back of our mind. And
and then other parents can warn you about things. Well, this happened to my child in school. This happened to my child out in church. And then, if your child is playing with that other,
You're
kid
aware.
or parent. Yes. And so awareness is really key. Preventing children from being victims is so important. And proper communication and proper awareness is really key to doing that. So thank you for having me.
Okay guys, so now we're going to wrap up. Thank you, Jacquelyn Aluotto, for joining me today. And if you could just share with us where we can find some more information on you.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I had a great time. If you want to learn more information, you would go to www.rbrwbreakthecycle.org, or easier, you would Google Real Beauty, Real Woman. It'll take you right to the website, and then you click on the foundation tab.
Okay.
And you'll get all the information there, and you can contact us from there.
Perfect. So thank you so much, and I hope this was very educational for you guys, and it definitely was for me, and I hope we can make a difference. Thank you so much for joining me today at beingsadaf.com. All the information that we have discussed is posted below. Please like and subscribe my channel, and I look forward to hearing your comments.